Hello and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer, the board game review show that is still waiting for a Titanic-themed board game. Rose, can't you scoot your butt over? I'm freezing down here. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 5 games from Academy Games. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 5 games from Academy Games, but before we do, I just want to make a brief announcement in the interests of transparency here. I very recently have entered into a project with Academy Games. It's something I am very excited about. I don't want to talk about too much about it right now, but in the coming months, perhaps I'll have more for you, but just know it is really, really cool, and again, I'm super excited about it. Alright, I want to give some honorable mentions to some of my favorite Academy games. So first of all, Thief. Thief 1429 is a game, it's almost like Game of Thrones in certain ways. Of course, it's in France during the 1400s, where you are, you're like a royal family or a noble family. You've got to marry your cousins and brothers and sisters off to different people to form alliances. But then, of course, you've got to elect the Pope. You've got to, have cardinals and bishops, and there's events that go on. You have plagues and food shortages and all sorts of things. And it's a kind of a medieval game. I think this game originally came out like in the 80s, and Academy Games just did this wonderful reprint of it and reproduction of it, and it's just a fantastic game. Really like that one a lot. Also, I was a big fan of 1812, the first game in the Birth of America series. This is just a fantastic game, of course, where it's area control, where you're using cubes for your armies. A lot of fun. And then, of course, its companion piece, 1754, which came out a few years later. Kind of basically the same thing, but there's a few new mechanics, a few little changes that also spice it up, but it too is a lot of fun. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 5 games from Academy Games. Number 5 is a game that I have just recently played for the first time. This is a game that I wanted to make this list, and I felt I couldn't make this list without playing this game. So I contacted Academy Games. I asked them, could I have a review copy of it? And so I recently reviewed it because I wanted to see where it would fit on this list. This is Mare Nostrum. Mare Nostrum is my number 5. And this, of course, is a great game. Mare Nostrum Empires is a great game about kind of the ancient world, Rome, Greece, Babylonia, all these ancient world Mediterranean powers that are, of course, vying for power. It's a civilization-building game. There's a lot of different ways to win. You can collect tiles, which are heroes and wonders. If you get 5 of those, you win. If you dominate the 3 tracks of trade and military and the other one, the building, then you go ahead and you win. There's other ways to win as well, capturing so many capitals or legendary cities. But it's just a lot of fun. It's one of those games where you're building up your army, but then maybe you neglect your economy. So you try to neglect your economy, and then suddenly you're invaded. So it's really a lot of fun. I really enjoyed Mare Nostrum Empires. That's my number 5 from Academy Games. My number 4 game from Academy Games is a game that Academy Games has not yet released. This was a game that I actually did a Kickstarter preview video for a couple of months ago, and my friends and I just fell in love with it. This is Tudor. Tudor it's a Euro game where you have units, you have cubes that are essentially going into an audience chamber where they gain actions from the table where they're at. But what that does is it allows you to move your units in the throne room, and your units are trying to advance toward offices, Lord Privy Seal, Chancellor, what have you. You're trying to get these offices because they give you more powers, and as you're moving along this throne room, you're collecting these tokens, which then in turn let you do other things. And it's just a tremendously fun and intense game. It's a mean game because you've got something worked out, you got a plan worked out, and then somebody kind of moves along your path, and it completely changes the path, and suddenly you can't do that anymore. So again, what I love about this game is it's one of those games where you have to pay attention even when it's not your turn, because interesting things happen. And I love games that force you to pay attention even when it's not your turn. This one does it just about as well as any game I've ever seen. So I really, really enjoyed Tudor. I think that's going to be coming out either later this year. I think it's later this year. That's from Academy Games, my number 4. My number 3 game from Academy Games is a game that I think was the first game I played from Academy Games, and this came out I want to say 2011 or 2012 thereabouts. I reviewed this actually for the Deseret News, and then it was one of the first reviews I did for the Discriminating Gamer. And that is Freedom the Underground Railroad. Freedom the Underground Railroad it's one of those games that has just amazing history. And that's one of the things I like about Academy Games. I'm a historian. Is they do great history-themed games. And not just war games. They do war games, but they do more than war games. And I really, really liked Freedom the Underground Railroad, how it uses history. And it's a very uncomfortable subject. It's a very dark subject, and yet it's something we need to talk about and it needs to be in the conversation. And I think this is a great game for young people to play because it sparks those kinds of conversations you need to have about these sorts of things. But it does so in an interesting and compelling and engaging way. And dare I say, a fun way, too. It's a very fun game. Essentially, you are trying to help slaves, people being treated as slaves, rather, to escape from plantations, to escape to the north via the Underground Railroad. But, of course, there's conductors that are kind of moving along during this really cool system that they move around. And you're trying to get around them, but it's always this game of choices. I can try to move guys this way, but I risk attracting, I risk getting caught there. But maybe I can move another way, but there's risks there too. And you're just kind of saying, how can I do the most good? And some of these people are going to be returned to the plantations, and it's kind of heartbreaking, but it's a good strategic dilemma. It's tough choices, and as I say, very, very important history and good history to learn. So for that reason, Freedom the Underground Railroad, my number 3 from Academy Games. My number 2 game from Academy Games is a game that I just played last fall. This is part of the Birth of America series, but it's not really America. It is 878 Vikings, Birth of Europe. So essentially, similar to some of those other games I mentioned earlier, but here you are Vikings invading England. Now, the game works best as 4 players, 2 Viking invaders, 2 English defenders, and but here what's different is if you're the Vikings, you come in as these leaders, and you have a leader card with so many Vikings that you kind of drop off as you're moving along. You're trying to take the various villages, and if you're the English, you're trying to defend them, and you can also get the, I can't remember what they're called, they're the little yellow guys that come out and they try to defend your area as well. It's very interesting. Here you've actually got the minis instead of the cubes, which is fun, but it's a good tactical game, or not tactical, but it's a good strategic choice game where you're trying to play the cards the best you can, because of course the cards tell you how many units you can move and how far you can move them, but you can't pick up and drop off units. So again, there's good choices there. I really like it. It's a fun Viking theme. They got the mini packs, so you can add miniatures to it. It's just a good production and a whole lot of fun. That is 878 Vikings. That is my number 2 from Academy Games. And finally, my number 1 game from Academy Games, 1775 Rebellion. 1775 Rebellion is my favorite Academy Games by far, one of my favorite games by far. This was I did a top 10 games of all time late last year, and this I think came in 7 or 8 or something like that. I really love this game a lot. It's my favorite of the Birth of series, and I was just talking a little bit about the Viking series, but I like this one the best because I think it makes the best use of area control, where you got the states and then a few Canadian colonies and whatnot that you're trying to control, but you only control them if they're just your cubes. If anybody else has a cube in there, they're not yours. The way you can make use of Native American allies in this game is really a lot of fun. And then the events and the things that just, the cards people play that can just, screw things up. I remember we were playing a game once. It was me and Zach and Sean and Mike, and Zach and I, we thought we had this thing in the bag. We're looking good. We're like, okay, if we can, just get through these next 2 turns, we've won the game. We already won the game. We're playing it again. And then Sean played a card that essentially swapped out 2 of our cubes for 2 of his cubes, which gave control of one of the states to them, and it just swung the balance of victory toward them. And it made us so mad, but it's so much fun. And I love how we weren't paying attention. We should have known that was an option, and we just weren't. We were concentrating kind of in the north around Boston, and this happened. This was one of the colonies in the south, like South Carolina or something. And it was just like a dagger in our hearts. But that's what I love about this game. They're quick games. These Birth of series games, they're under 2 hours, but they are so intense and they're so much fun. And I like how you've got teamwork. So throughout the game, you have to negotiate with your team member. So you're negotiating here, but it's still a war game, and you're still fighting, and I really like that. Joel Eddy called 1775 Rebellion, the Ticket to Ride of War Games, and I think that's so true because I think this is a good intro to war games, but it's just a great game in itself. I think you don't have to be a war gamer to play and love and really enjoy this game. But if you are a war gamer, you will still play and love and really enjoy this game. It kind of attracts all sides there, I think. You know, it's light enough, but there's still so much depth there that it's fun. And this is a fun game. Like I say, this is top 10 game material for me of all time. I love 1775 Rebellion. It is absolutely fantastic. So, what else can I say about it? This is one, you know, if you haven't played it, you need to go out and play it and buy it and love it, because this game will return that love over and over again every time you break it out and put it on your tabletop. And so that is my number one, 1775 Rebellion from Academy Games. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. We are The Discriminating Gamer, and I gotta tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned before, I am working on a project with Academy Games. Again, I can't say too much about it right now, but it is something that I think is going to be a whole lot of fun. And as I say, I am really, really looking forward to it. So, until next time.
Please somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
Let's not forget that historically the French and Indians won the French and Indian War, and that is why we're all speaking French and Indian today. Quand j'étais petit, quand j'avais 12 ans, j'ai voulu être
You should download like Duolingo and stuff.
Mais aujourd'hui, j'ai travaillé dans Doug Smith Super.
You haven't
Mais j'espère être un prof de l'histoire.